Welcome to St. Winifred's Well. This ancient shrine has been a place of continuous public pilgrimage since the middle of the 7th century, and by your visit here you become a part of living history, the most recent of the countless people drawn to this spot down the centuries. It is a place of pilgrimage still today, but people now come not just on pilgrimage, but to admire the unique and beautiful building over the Holy Well, and to explore the story which has made the shrine so significant in the history of Wales. And whether you come as a pilgrim or as a tourist, we welcome you. The tableau in front of you shows Saints Winifred and Bino beside the Holy Well, in which lies the stone known as Mein Bino, St. Bino's stone. The figures make an attempt to show them in contemporary dress, Bino in mass vestments, and Winifred in an artist's reconstruction of what a young Welsh aristocratic woman of the 7th century might have worn. The group represents the key moment in the story of St. Winifred, the moment upon which all the subsequent history of this ancient shrine depends. According to the story, Winifred was the only child of a local nobleman named Tybyd, who gave one of his manors at the place now called Holywell to a priest called Bino. Bino built a church here, and in thanks for Tybyd's donation, began to teach Tybyd's teenage daughter, Winifred, who in consequence decided that she would become a nun. But one day, while her parents were at Mass in St. Bino's church, Winifred was at home alone. Caradoc, the son of a local prince, who had been out hunting that morning, stopped at the house, and seeing the beautiful Winifred, tried to seduce her. Because of her vocation, Winifred refused to yield to Caradoc, who thereupon violently tried to rape her. Desperate to preserve her chastity, Winifred managed to escape and ran towards the church. But Caradoc caught her just outside the church and cut off her head with his sword. And where the head fell, a great stream of water erupted, which has continued to flow from that day to this. Rushing from the church, Bino placed Winifred's head back on her body and prayed over her. His prayers were heard. The body returned at once to life. Winifred lived for some 15 years after her resurrection. She became a nun and joined a religious community at Gwytherin, about 21 miles southwest of Holywell. She eventually became abbess, and after her death, sometime in the middle of the 7th century, she was recognized as a saint, and her grave, like her well at Holywell, quickly became a place of pilgrimage. The tableau depicts the moment when St. Bino, having left the altar where he was saying Mass, restores the murdered St. Winifred to new life. The waters of the spring, which in future will heal the sick, bubble forth where her severed head fell, beside St. Bino's stone. All that remains of the tragedy is the thin scar around her neck. The legend of St. Winifred was not written down until some 500 years after the events it describes. But it is important to recognize that Winifred and Bino were real people who lived real lives in 7th century Wales. Their medieval written lives are not history as this is understood today, but symbolic explorations of such facts about them that the memory of the church and local oral tradition has preserved. It is enough to say that, down the centuries, Christians have seen Winifred's story as in some sense sharing in and reproducing the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Like a Welsh Lazarus, Winifred went down into death and returned to new life through a special mercy of God. For Christians, their own baptism parallels this experience, and like Winifred going down to death and rising to life, and like the Christian entering the waters of baptism and coming forth to spiritual wholeness, the sick pilgrim to Holywell might go down into the waters of the well and come out restored to health. Symbolically imitating Winifred, renewing their own baptisms and incorporating themselves into Christ, pilgrims to Holywell are able to experience pilgrimage as a profound symbol of their whole spiritual journey through life. This concept has been explored more thoroughly on the two panels on either side of the tableau, in English and in St. Winifred's own language, Welsh. The illustrations on these panels, showing episodes in Winifred's story, are reproduced from a window in St. Winifred's Catholic Church here in Holywell, which was presented to the church by pilgrims in 1860. Turn round and look at the wall behind you, where you can see evidence which tells us just how some people have experienced the story of Winifred in their own lives. You are now looking at a wall covered with votive offerings made to St. Winifred. Over the centuries, countless numbers of pilgrims have found healing in the waters of St. Winifred's Well. Records of such cures are found from all periods over the past 800 years, and many of the cured have wished to leave permanent memorials of their experience at the well in thanksgiving, and to further encourage other pilgrims. They wrote accounts of their cures, some of which were published in the contemporary press, or even printed as handbills for distribution in the town, like the example shown on this wall. Others made presents to the shrine, like the circular brass plaque now in St. Winifred's Chapel in the Holywell Catholic Church, or like the embroidered banner showing St. Winifred, on the reverse of which is the simple inscription, "Pilgrim's Banner, presented by one who was cured in June 1920. This inscription is shown in the photograph alongside the banner. Most touching of all are the crutches, a sample of all those that stood around the well until the 1960s, and each of which represents the cure of one of a wide variety of crippling physical complaints. The photograph displayed above the crutches shows how the shrine looked 100 years ago, when they were in place at the well. Immediately to the right of the entrance door is the fine stone banner commissioned in 1896, depicting St. Winifred as a royal abbess and martyr. This banner was carried at the head of the annual feast day procession through the town for some 60 years. The exhibition hall you are now standing in was formally opened in 2003. The text and illustrations on the 10-number display panels on either side of the central tableau explore the life and legend of St. Winifred and the history of her well and pilgrimage. Then, when you are ready to proceed to the next section of the tour to visit the well shrine, leave through the left-hand door to the well marked Exit. As you enter the well garden, to avoid the steps and enjoy the finest view of the shrine, follow the arrow to the right and take the processional path to the well.